The space station called Convergence Prime floated in the darkness between three dying stars. It was the largest structure ever built by any species in the galaxy. Millions of aliens lived there, worked there, and made decisions that affected billions of lives across 4,000 worlds. And somewhere in the lower levels, in a small room with gray walls and no windows, Han Do-hyun waited for the meeting that would decide humanity's future. He was 34 years old, with tired eyes and hands that never stopped moving. He checked his tablet again, reading the same words he had read 100 times. The Vethkai wanted all species to join something called the Weave. It was a neural network, a way for minds to connect across the stars. The Vethkai called it Unity. Do-hyun called it Control. The door opened and Yoon Sora walked in. She was younger than him, 29, with short black hair and glasses that she kept pushing up her nose. She was a xenolinguist, someone who studied alien languages. But that was not why Do-hyun had brought her here. Sora had something special in her brain, a mutation that made her neural patterns different from other humans. The doctor said it was a defect. Do-hyun was not so sure. "You look terrible," Sora said, sitting down across from him. "I haven't slept in 3 days. That explains it." She looked around the small room. "So this is where humanity's fate gets decided?" "I expected something bigger." Do-hyun almost smiled. Almost. The Vethkai don't care about big rooms. They care about power. And right now, they have all of it. The Vethkai were the oldest species in the Galactic Collective. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. They were tall, thin, with skin like gray stone and eyes that glowed soft blue. They did not speak with their mouths. They spoke with their minds. And they believed that any species that could not speak with their minds was not really intelligent at all. For 300 years, humanity had been part of the collective. They were allowed to trade, to travel, to build colonies on worlds that nobody else wanted. But they were never treated as equals. The Vethkai called them the Loud Ones, because human thoughts were messy and emotional and impossible to read. Other species thought this was funny. Humans were like children to them, noisy and confused. But now the Vethkai wanted something new. They wanted every species to join the Weave, to connect their minds to the great network that the Vethkai controlled. They said it would bring peace. They said it would end all conflict. They did not say that it would also end all freedom. The previous tests, Sora said quietly. The humans who tried to connect to the Weave, they all died, didn't they? Do-hyun nodded. Their brains couldn't handle it. The Weave is designed for telepathic species. Human minds are too chaotic. So, if we can't join, and we refuse to join, what happens to us? Exile. We lose our trade agreements, our colonies, our place in the collective. We go back to being alone in the universe. Sora was quiet for a long moment. And if we could join? If they found a way to make it work? Then we lose ourselves. The Weave doesn't just connect minds. It shapes them. Every species that joins becomes more like the Vethkai. Calm, logical, empty. The door opened again, and a Vethkai elder floated into the room. His name was something that could not be spoken aloud, only thought. He was ancient, his gray skin cracked like old stone, his blue eyes burning with cold light. Behind him came 2 younger Vethkai, their minds reaching out like invisible hands, touching everything in the room. Do-hyun stood. Sora stood beside him. The elder's voice appeared directly in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. It was not a comfortable feeling. You are the human representatives. You speak for your species. I speak for the United Human Colonies, Do-hyun said carefully. I cannot speak for every human everywhere. This is the chaos we expected. One species, many voices. How do you function? We manage. The elder's eyes moved to Sora. This one is different. Her mind is loud, louder than most humans. It is unpleasant. Sora tensed but said nothing. We have come to offer a demonstration, the elder continued, to show you that the weave is not something to fear. Your species resists because you do not understand. We will help you understand. We've seen your demonstrations, Do-hyun said. We've seen what happens to humans who try to connect. Those were failures. Weak minds. But this one, the elder looked at Sora again. This one is strong, different, perhaps strong enough. Do-hyun stepped in front of Sora. No, she's not part of this. Everything is part of the weave. Everything will be connected. This is not a choice. It is evolution. The elder raised one long gray hand. The two younger Vethkai moved forward, their minds pressing against Sora's like cold fingers pushing into her skull. Sora gasped. Her knees buckled. She grabbed Do-hyun's arm, her fingers digging into his skin. Stop this, Do-hyun shouted. You're hurting her. Pain is temporary. Understanding is eternal. She will see. She will. The elder stopped. His blue eyes went wide. Something was happening. Something that had never happened before. Sora's mind was not breaking. It was not folding under the pressure of the Vethkai intrusion. Instead, it was pushing back. Her neural patterns, those loud and chaotic signals that the aliens found so unpleasant, were surging outward like a wave. The two younger Vethkai stumbled backward. One of them fell, his body hitting the floor with a sound like cracking stone. The elder screamed. It was not a sound that came from his mouth. It was a sound that came from his mind, a wave of pain and shock that made Do-hyun's teeth ache. What is this? The elder demanded. What are you? Sora couldn't answer. Her eyes had rolled back in her head. Blood was dripping from her nose. But she was still standing, still pushing, still fighting against something that no human had ever fought before. And then she felt it. Something beyond the weave. Something older. Something that had been waiting in the darkness for a very, very long time. The connection lasted only a second. But in that second, Sora saw things. Cities made of pure light. A war that had burned across 10,000 worlds. A species that had died so long ago that even the stars they had known were now cold and dark. And a network, a different network, one that made the weave look like a child's toy. Then she collapsed. Do-hyun caught her before she hit the ground. The elder was backing away, his ancient face twisted with something that looked almost like fear. This is not possible, the elder said. Her mind should have shattered. No species has ever. Get out, Do-hyun said. His voice was quiet but hard as steel. Get out of this room, now. The elder stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and floated away, the two younger Vethkai scrambling after him. Do-hyun held Sora in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold and pale. He thought she was unconscious, but then her eyes opened. They were different now, somehow deeper, as if they had seen something that no human was meant to see. Linked? She whispered. Do-hyun frowned. What? I felt something. A connection, but not to the weave. She grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. Her voice was barely a breath. Something else. Something they're afraid of. Something that's been waiting for us. Outside the room, alarms began to sound. The Vethkai were mobilizing, their fleet powering up around the station. Whatever had just happened, whatever Sora had just touched, it had changed everything. Humanity was no longer just a minor species to be ignored. Now they were a threat. The ship was called Silent Dawn, and it was the fastest vessel in the human fleet. It was built for stealth, for running away, for surviving when everything else had failed. Right now, it was doing all three. Captain Park Ji-woo stood at the helm, her hands steady on the controls as the ship tore through space at speeds that made the stars blur into lines of white light. She was 41 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and scars on her hands from 20 years of fighting. She had fought pirates. She had fought rebels. She had never fought the Vethkai before, but she was ready to start. "They're still following us," her navigator reported. "6 ships closing fast. Let them come," Ji-woo said. "They won't catch us before we reach the jump point." Behind her, in the medical bay, Do-hyun sat beside Sora's bed. She had been unconscious for 3 hours, her body fighting to recover from whatever had happened in that room. The ship's doctor, a nervous young man named Cho Minho, kept checking her vital signs and shaking his head. "I've never seen brain activity like this," Minho said. "It's like she's dreaming, but the patterns are all wrong. They're not random. They're organized, almost like a language. Can you wake her up?" "I could try, but I don't know what it would do to her. Her mind is processing something massive." "If I interrupted..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Do-hyun looked at Sora's face. She looked peaceful, almost calm, which was strange considering what she had been through. He remembered the sound of the Vethkai elder screaming, the fear in those ancient blue eyes. No species had ever pushed back against the weave, until now. The door opened and a young man walked in. He was tall and thin, with messy hair and oil stains on his clothes. His name was Kang Tae-ho, and he was the ship's engineer. He was also Sora's younger brother. "Is she okay?" Tae-ho asked, his voice tight with worry. "She's stable," Minho said. "That's all I can tell you." Tae-ho moved to his sister's side, taking her hand. "I told her not to go. I told her those aliens were dangerous. But she never listens. She never." Sora's eyes opened. Everyone froze. "The echo," Sora whispered. Her voice was rough, like she had been screaming for hours. "That's what it's called. The Echo Network." Do-hyun leaned closer. "Sora, what are you talking about? What did you see?" "Everything." She sat up slowly, Minho trying to push her back down and failing. "The weave isn't original. The Vethkai didn't create it. They stole it. There was another network before, something older, something better. They called it the Echo." Tae-ho's face went pale. "The signals?" he said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "I've been tracking strange signals for months," Tae-ho explained. "They come from dead worlds, planets where nothing has lived for millions of years. The signals are organized, like they're part of a pattern, but I could never figure out what they meant. But now," he looked at his sister, "the signals match the patterns in your brain, exactly." Sora nodded. "The echo is calling. It's been waiting. And somehow my mind is the key." Captain Ji-woo's voice came over the speaker. "We've reached the jump point. Everyone hold on." The ship shuddered as it entered hyperspace, leaving the Vethkai fleet behind. For now, they were safe. 3 hours later, they gathered in the ship's small meeting room. Ji-woo sat at the head of the table, her arms crossed, her face hard. She did not trust any of this, and she was not afraid to show it. "Let me understand," she said. "You're telling me that there's an ancient alien network hidden in dead planets, and your brain can access it because of some mutation?" "That's correct," Sora said. She was still weak, still pale, but her voice was steady. "The species that created the Echo, they called themselves the Architects. They were the first intelligent species in the galaxy, millions of years before the Vethkai existed. They built the Echo as a way to connect minds across the stars, but it was different from the weave. It was based on choice, not control. What happened to them?" Do-hyun asked. Sora's face darkened. "War. Something attacked them, something from outside the galaxy. They fought back, but they couldn't win. So they did something desperate. They encoded themselves into the echo, their memories, their knowledge, everything they were. And then they went silent, waiting for someone who could wake them up. And that someone is you? Jiwoo did not sound convinced. My mutation makes my neural patterns loud and chaotic. To the Vethkai, that's a defect. But to the echo, it's a key. The architects designed it for minds that feel deeply, minds that are emotional and unpredictable. Minds like humans. The room was quiet for a long moment. The Vethkai are afraid, Taiho said. That's why they reacted the way they did. They've known about the echo for centuries, maybe longer. They've been hunting it, trying to destroy it, because they know it's a threat to their power. It is a threat, Sora agreed. The weave controls people by connecting their minds to a central system that the Vethkai control. The echo is different. It connects minds directly to each other. No control, no hierarchy. If we can activate it, every species in the galaxy could connect without the Vethkai in the middle. Jiwoo leaned forward. And where is this echo? Where do we find it? There's a planet, Sora said. Narration 7. It's a dead world in an empty system, far from any trade routes. The strongest signals are coming from there. I think that's where the architects left their greatest creation. And you want us to take you there? Yes. Jiwoo looked at her for a long time. Then she looked at Do-hyun. What do you think? Do-hyun thought about everything he knew, everything he had seen. He thought about the fear in the Vethkai elder's eyes. He thought about his sister, who had died years ago when a Vethkai fleet destroyed the Kepler colony because humans had built it too close to their territory. He thought about all the years humanity had spent bowing and scraping and begging for scraps from species who saw them as nothing more than animals. I think we should go, he said. I think this might be our only chance to matter. Jiwoo nodded slowly. Then we go. But if this turns out to be a trap, if this gets my crew killed, I'm holding both of you responsible. The jump to Narration 7 took 4 days. During that time, Sora spent hours in meditation, trying to understand the visions she had received. The architects spoke to her in dreams, showing her fragments of their history, their technology, their final desperate act of preservation. On the last day before arrival, she found Do-hyun on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. You lost someone, she said. It was not a question. My sister, Haijin. She was on the Kepler colony when the Vethkai destroyed it. I'm sorry. The collective called it a necessary correction. They said humans had violated territorial boundaries. But the truth was, we were building something successful, something that showed we could thrive without them. They couldn't allow that. Sora stood beside him, looking at the same stars. Is that why you became a diplomat? To fight them? I became a diplomat because I was too afraid to fight them with weapons. I thought words could change things. He laughed bitterly. I was wrong. Maybe not. Maybe words and weapons aren't enough. Maybe we need something else entirely. The echo. The echo. A way to connect that doesn't require control. A way to share that doesn't require surrender. She looked at him, her eyes intense. The architects failed because they were alone. They didn't have allies. But we do. There are thousands of species in the collective who hate the Vethkai as much as we do. They're just too afraid to fight back. And you think the echo can change that? I think the echo can show them they're not alone. I think it can show them that another way is possible. The ship's alarm sounded. They had arrived. Narration 7 hung in space like a gray ghost, a world that had been dead for millions of years. But as the silent dawn approached, lights began to flicker on the surface. Ancient technology, awakening after an endless sleep. It knows we're here, Sora whispered. And somewhere behind them, still hidden by the darkness of space, the Vethkai fleet was coming. They had been hunting the echo for millennia. They would not let it wake without a fight. The ruins were beautiful. That was the first thing Sora noticed as she stepped onto the surface of Nethera 7. The buildings had been made of something that looked like glass but felt like stone. Towers that reached toward a sky that had been dead for 2 million years. Even now, broken and covered in dust, they caught the light from distant stars and turned it into rainbows. "The architects built well," she said quietly. Do-hyun walked beside her, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. It was a plasma pistol, small but powerful enough to burn through metal. He did not think it would be much use against whatever they might find here, but it made him feel better. Behind them, Taiho carried a scanning device, waving it at every surface he passed. "The energy readings are incredible," he said. "This whole city is like a giant battery. It's been storing power for millions of years, just waiting to be turned on." Captain Jiwoo had stayed with the ship, ready to run if things went wrong. The rest of the crew was on high alert, watching the skies for any sign of the Vethkai fleet that was certainly following them. Sora led them through the empty streets, guided by something she could not explain. The visions in her head had shown her this place, had shown her where to go. She walked like someone returning home after a long journey, her steps certain even in this alien landscape. They came to a building larger than the others, a dome that rose from the center of the city like a temple. The doors were sealed, but as Sora approached, they began to open. Light spilled out from inside, warm and golden, nothing like the cold blue of Vethkai technology. "It recognizes you," Do-hyun said. "It recognizes what I am, what we are." Sora stepped through the doors, and the others followed. Inside, the dome was a single massive chamber. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move when you looked at them directly. In the center of the chamber stood a pillar of light, and within that light, something was waiting. It was not a body. It was not a machine. It was something between, a presence that existed in the boundary between matter and energy. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once, gentle and old, beyond imagining. "You have come. After so long, you have finally come." Sora stepped forward. "Are you the architects?" "We are what remains of them. We are the remnant, the last echo of a species that died protecting this galaxy. We have waited for ones like you, like me? Loud minds, chaotic minds, minds that burn with feeling." The remnant's voice softened. "The Vethkai call this a weakness. They are wrong. It is your greatest strength." Do-hyun moved to stand beside Sora. "I don't understand. How can emotion be a strength? The Vethkai are powerful because they don't feel. They're cold, logical, efficient. And that is exactly why they fear you." The light pulsed gently. "Let me show you the truth." Images filled the chamber, projected by the ancient technology around them. They saw the architects as they had been, tall and graceful, with 4 arms and eyes that sparkled like diamonds. They saw the Vethkai as they had been, before the weave, just one species among thousands. The architects created 2 networks, the remnant explained. The first was the Echo. It was designed to connect minds through empathy, through shared feeling. When 2 beings linked through the Echo, they felt what the other felt. Joy, sorrow, fear, hope. It created understanding without control. And the weave? Sora asked. The weave was an experiment. The architects wondered if connection could work without emotion, if minds could be linked through pure logic. They gave the prototype to the Vethkai, who were a young and promising species at the time. The images changed, showing the Vethkai as they received the weave. As they began to use it, as they slowly changed into what they were now. The weave worked, but not as intended. Without emotion to guide it, the connection became hierarchy. The strongest minds controlled the weakest. The Vethkai, who mastered the weave, became the elders, and they began to suppress feeling in their own species, believing it made them weak. They turned connection into slavery, Do-hyun said. Yes, and when the architects saw what had happened, they tried to take the weave back. But the Vethkai refused. They had tasted power, and they wanted more. That was when the war began. The images showed battle, terrible and vast. Fleets of millions of ships burning in the darkness between galaxies. The architects and their allies against the Vethkai and theirs. We were winning, the remnant said sadly. But then something else came. Something from beyond the galaxy, drawn by the noise of our war. We could not fight both enemies at once. So we made a choice. You hid, Sora whispered. You stored yourselves in the echo and went silent. We believed that if we disappeared, the threat from outside would lose interest. We believed that eventually, a species would come who could wake us, who could use the echo to challenge the weave. The light focused on Sora. You are that species. Humans are what we have been waiting for. But why us? Taiho asked. We're not stronger than the Vethkai. We don't have their technology or their numbers. We're nothing special. You are special because you feel, the remnant said. The echo requires emotion to function. It takes the feelings of one mind and shares them with another. But more than that, human emotion is contagious. It spreads. What do you mean? When a Vethkai connects to the weave, they share thoughts and information. It is cold, efficient, controlled. But when a human connects to the echo, they share feelings. And those feelings can spread through any network, even the weave. Do-hyun's eyes widened. That's why the elder was so afraid. When Sora pushed back, she wasn't just resisting. She was infecting the weave with human emotion. Yes, if a human were to fully link to the echo and broadcast through it, every mind connected to the weave would feel what that human felt. Hope, courage, love, rage. All the things the Vethkai have spent millennia suppressing. It would break them, Sora said. It would free them. The Vethkai are not evil. They have simply forgotten how to feel. They are afraid of emotion because they don't understand it anymore. But if they could remember, if they could feel again, many of them would choose to change. Ji-woo's voice crackled over the communication device. We have a problem. The Vethkai fleet just arrived. At least 200 ships, and more are coming. Do-hyun looked at Sora. We're out of time. No, Sora said. She turned to the remnant. Can I do it? Can I link to the echo and broadcast through it? You can try, but you cannot do it alone. The echo was designed for two minds working together. One to feel, one to anchor. Without an anchor, your mind will burn out in minutes. I'll do it, Do-hyun said immediately. No, Sora shook her head. You don't understand what that means. If we link, our minds will be connected completely. Every memory, every feeling, everything we are. And if something goes wrong, we both die. My sister died because I was too afraid to act. I spent 10 years trying to make peace with words, and nothing changed. The Vethkai destroyed my home, killed my family, and treated my entire species like animals. Do-hyun took her hand. If there's a chance to change that, I'll take it. No matter the cost. Sora looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Tell me what to do, Do-hyun said to the remnant. Stand together. Open your minds. And do not let go, no matter what happens. Above them, through the ancient dome, they could see the flashes of weapons fire as Captain Ji-woo and the Silent Dawn began to fight. 200 against 1. There was no way to win. But maybe they did not need to win the battle. Maybe they just needed to change the rules. Do-hyun took Sora's other hand. They faced each other, eyes locked, breathing synchronized. And then, together, They reached out with their minds. The connection hit like lightning. Do-hyun felt Sora's memories flood into him. Her childhood, her discovery of her mutation, her years of being treated as strange and broken. And she felt his sister's smile, the fire that had taken her, the cold anger that had driven him ever since. And behind all of that, the echo awakened. Across 47 dead worlds, ancient nodes began to power up, sending signals into the darkness, creating a web of connection that had been silent for 2 million years. The galaxy shuddered, and in the weave, the Vethkai began to feel something they had not felt in millennia: fear. The Silent Dawn was not built for direct combat. It was built for running, for hiding, for striking quickly and disappearing before the enemy could respond. But now there was nowhere to run, and Captain Jiwoo was not the kind of person who hid while others fought. "All weapons forward," she commanded. "Target the lead ship." Her small crew worked frantically at their stations. They were engineers and scientists, not soldiers, but they followed her orders without question. The ship's plasma cannons fired, bright lines of energy cutting through the darkness of space. The Vethkai fleet numbered 230 ships. The smallest of them was 3 times the size of the Silent Dawn. The largest was a command vessel, a floating fortress that could destroy entire planets. Against such forces, one human ship was less than nothing. But they were not fighting to win. They were fighting to buy time. "Enemy fire incoming," the navigator shouted. Evasive action. The Silent Dawn twisted and spun, dodging beams of cold blue energy that could have cut through its hull like paper. Jiwoo's hands moved across the controls with practiced speed, her mind calculating angles and trajectories faster than any computer. "Get me a communication channel," she ordered. "Broadcast on all frequencies." "To whom?" "Everyone. Every ship in range. Every species that can hear." The channel opened, and Jiwoo spoke. "This is Captain Park Jiwoo of the human vessel Silent Dawn. The Vethkai fleet is attacking us because we found something they don't want anyone to know about. Something that could change everything." The Vethkai commander's voice cut into the transmission, cold and sharp. "Silence, human. Your lies will not save you. They're not lies. There's an ancient network called the Echo, built by a species that existed before the collective. The Vethkai stole their technology and turned it into the weave. They've been using it to control every species in the galaxy for thousands of years. You will be destroyed for this, maybe, but you can't destroy the truth. It's already spreading." On the surface of Nether 7, inside the ancient dome, Do-hyun and Sora were deep in the link. Their minds had merged, becoming something more than either of them alone. They could feel the echo awakening across the galaxy. 47 nodes coming online after 2 million years of silence. And they could feel the weave. It was vast, terrifying, a network of billions of minds all connected to the Vethkai elders. Every species that had submitted to integration was there, their thoughts flowing through channels controlled by the cold, logical minds at the center. "There are so many," Sora whispered, though she was not sure if she spoke aloud or only in the link. "So many minds, all trapped." "Not trapped," Do-hyun responded. "Sleeping. They've forgotten what it feels like to be free. We need to remind them." "How?" "By feeling. By showing them what they've lost." They reached out together, their linked minds broadcasting through the echo. It was not words they sent. It was emotion. Raw, powerful, human emotion. They shared hope, the hope of a species that had been treated as inferior for 300 years, but never stopped believing that things could change. They shared grief, the pain of losing loved ones, of watching homes burn, of crying alone in the darkness. They shared love, the warmth of connection, the joy of finding someone who understood, The strength that came from not being alone. They shared anger, the righteous fury of those who had been wronged, the burning determination to make things right. And they shared courage, a terrifying, beautiful choice to stand up when everyone said you should stay down. The signal spread through the echo like fire through dry grass. It touched the nodes on 47 worlds and multiplied, bouncing from planet to planet, reaching further than any message had ever reached before. And where the echo touched the weave, something incredible happened. The Vethkai drones were the first to feel it. They were the lowest members of their species, minds that had been stripped of all emotion, turned into perfect soldiers and workers. They had not felt anything in centuries. Now they felt everything. One drone, stationed on a mining outpost in a distant system, stopped in the middle of his work. A memory surfaced, something from before his integration, the face of his child, a feeling of warmth he had forgotten he could experience. He began to cry. He did not know why. A soldier on one of the attack ships felt a surge of doubt. Why was she fighting these humans? What had they done to deserve destruction? The questions had never occurred to her before. Now they would not stop. An elder, old and powerful and cold, felt a flash of fear that was not controlled or directed, just raw and personal. He remembered what it was like to be young, to not understand everything, to be afraid of the dark. He had spent thousands of years running from that feeling. Now it had found him. On the bridge of the command vessel, the High Elder watched his fleet begin to fall apart. Ships were stopping, soldiers were questioning orders. The perfect discipline of the weave was cracking. He reached out with his mind, trying to reinforce control, trying to push the emotions back down. But there were too many cracks, too many feelings breaking through. What is happening? He demanded. What are the humans doing to us? His advisors had no answer. They were too busy trying to control their own sudden rush of feeling. Captain Ji-woo watched as the Vethkai fleet slowed, ships drifting out of formation, weapons going silent. I don't believe it, she whispered. It's working. But it was not over. The High Elder was ancient, powerful, and determined. He gathered every bit of control he had, every technique developed over millennia, and he pushed back. The weave contracted, tightening its grip on the minds it controlled. The wave of emotion slowed, stopped, began to retreat. On the surface, Sora gasped in pain. He's too strong. He's pushing us back. Then we push harder, Do-hyun said. I can't. The link is burning me out. If we keep going, then we keep going. Daehyun's mental voice was steady, certain. My whole life, I was afraid. Afraid to fight, afraid to fail, afraid to die. But I'm not afraid anymore. Are you? Sora looked at him, or rather, looked into him, seeing his soul laid bare. He was not perfect. He was not a hero. He was just a man who had lost too much and was tired of losing. And he was hers, and she was his, linked together in a way that nothing could break. No, she said. I'm not afraid. They pushed. This time, they did not just broadcast emotion. They became it. Every feeling they had ever had, every joy and sorrow and hope and fear, poured out of them in a torrent that could not be stopped. The High Elder screamed as the wave hit him. For the first time in 10,000 years, he felt something he could not control. It was joy. Pure, simple, childlike joy. And it terrified him. What are you doing to us? He shouted into the void. Sora's answer came not through words, but through feeling. She sent him an image, a memory of standing on a cliff and watching the sunrise, feeling small and insignificant and completely at peace. She sent him the warmth of her brother's hand in hers, the safety of knowing someone loved her. She sent him laughter, real laughter, the kind that came from your stomach and made your eyes water. We're not doing anything to you, she said. We're just being human. The High Elder's defenses crumbled, and with them, the weave began to fracture. In the space around Nethera 7, the Vethkai fleet fell into chaos. Some ships continued to fight, their crews still loyal to the old ways. Others turned on each other, soldiers suddenly questioning orders they had never questioned before. And some simply stopped, their crews standing in silence, rediscovering feelings they had not known in centuries. Admiral Shin Yunji arrived with what remained of the human defense fleet, 150 ships that had raced across the galaxy to answer Jiwu's broadcast. Behind her came 12 other fleets from 12 other species, the ones who had suffered under Vethkai rule for too long, the ones who had finally found the courage to fight back. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in centuries, the outcome was no longer certain. And in the dome on Nethera 7, surrounded by ancient light, Do-Yun and Sora held each other as their minds continued to burn, knowing that whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. The battle lasted 3 days. Ships burned in the darkness between stars. Minds fought across networks that stretched across the galaxy. And slowly, painfully, everything changed. The Vethkai fleet fractured completely on the second day. Half continued fighting, their crews clinging to the old ways, unable to accept the feelings that flooded through them. The other half surrendered or simply drifted away, their soldiers too overwhelmed by emotion to continue. Admiral Yunji coordinated the Allied fleet with calm precision. She had spent her career preparing for a war that everyone said would never come. Now it was here, and she was ready. Captain Jiwu led strike teams against the most dangerous Vethkai ships, her small silent dawn dancing between giants, hitting weak points, creating chaos. She lost count of how many times she almost died. She did not care. For the first time in her life, she was fighting for something more than survival. And on the surface of Nethera 7, Do-Hyun and Sora continued to burn. The link was killing them. They both knew it. Their minds were not built to channel this much power, this much emotion. Every minute that passed, they grew weaker. Blood dripped from their noses, their ears, their eyes. Their bodies shook with fever. But they did not let go. "We can't keep this up," Sora said through the link. Her voice was faint, like a candle in a storm. "The echo is draining us. I know. If we stop now, the Vethkai will regain control. Everything we've done will be for nothing. I know." Taiho burst into the dome, his face wild with fear. "You have to stop. The readings are off the charts. Your neural activity is going critical. If you don't disconnect now, you'll both die." Do-Hyun looked at him with eyes that glowed faintly with golden light. "We can't stop. Not yet. There has to be another way." The remnant's voice filled the chamber. "There is. But it requires a choice that cannot be undone." Sora turned toward the pillar of light. "Tell us." The echo and the weave were both created by the architects. They are two halves of the same whole. One was designed for feeling, one for thinking. One for chaos, one for order. They were meant to work together, not against each other. "The Vethkai corrupted the weave," Do-Hyun said. "They turned it into a tool of control." "Yes, but the corruption is not permanent. The weave can be healed. It can be merged with the echo, creating a single network that combines the best of both. Connection without control. Unity without surrender. How?" Sora asked. "You must choose. You can burn out the echo, use all of its remaining power to destroy the weave completely. This will free every mind currently connected, but it will leave them alone, disconnected, without any way to reach each other. And you will both die in the process." Do-Hyun felt Sora's grief through the link, her fear of death, her desire to live. "Or," the remnant continued, "you can merge the networks. This will not destroy the weave. It will transform it. Every being connected will be able to choose whether to feel or think, to connect or disconnect. The Vethkai, who wish to remain cold and logical, may do so. Those who wish to feel again will have that option. And humans, with your loud and chaotic minds, will become the bridge between them. Will we survive? Sora asked. Unknown. The process has never been attempted. But survival is possible. Diane and Sora looked at each other through the link. They did not need words. They could feel each other's thoughts, each other's fears, each other's hopes. Freedom isn't something you give people by dying for them, Sora said slowly. It's something you build with them, day by day, connection by connection. I didn't become a diplomat to destroy things, Do-hyun replied. I became one to build bridges. Their decision was made. We choose the merge, Sora said to the remnant. Show us what to do? The light in the dome intensified. The echo and the weave touched for the first time in 2 million years, and the universe held its breath. On the Vethkai command ship, the High Elder felt the change. One moment he was fighting to maintain control, struggling against the wave of human emotion. The next moment, the struggle stopped. The weave was still there, but it was different, softer, more flexible, and he could feel a choice opening before him. He could stay as he was, cold and logical and empty, or he could let himself feel. For a long moment, he hesitated. He was ancient. He had been empty for so long he could not remember any other way. Then he felt a whisper through the new network, a voice that was neither human nor Vethkai, but something of both. It said, "It's okay to be afraid. Everyone is afraid. But you don't have to be afraid alone." The High Elder made his choice. He let himself feel. Across the galaxy, billions of minds experienced the same moment. Some chose to stay as they were. Some chose to change. And many, perhaps most, chose something in between, a balance that no one had ever offered them before. The war ended not with a victory, but with a transformation. 3 years later, Do-hyun stood on the observation deck of the Convergence Prime, the same station where everything had begun. It was different now. The cold gray walls had been painted with colors. The corridors echoed with the sound of voices, not just telepathic whispers, but actual spoken words. The Vethkai still lived here, but they were not the same. Some had chosen to remain logical, and they continued to manage the station with quiet efficiency. Others had rediscovered emotion, and they were learning, slowly and sometimes painfully, how to feel again. The door opened and Sora walked in. She looked older than she had 3 years ago. The merge had taken something from both of them, some spark of youth that they would never get back. But her eyes were the same, deep and warm and alive. The ambassador from the Tethran Collective is here, she said. They want to discuss joining the Reform Network. Another one. Do-hyun smiled. That's the 12th this month. Word spreads. Species that never would have considered connection are now curious. They see what's possible when you don't have to give up yourself to belong. They stood together at the window, looking out at the ships that came and went from the station. Human ships. Vethkai ships. Ships from 100 different species, all moving together in a dance of commerce and diplomacy and life. Do you ever regret it? Sora asked. Regret what? The link. The merge. Everything we gave up. Do-hyun considered the question carefully. The merge had left them connected in ways that went beyond normal human experience. They could feel each other's emotions from across a room, sometimes from across a planet. Privacy was different for them now. Solitude was different. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. We changed things. We made something better. Some would say we didn't go far enough. Some would say we should have destroyed the weave entirely. Those people are welcome to their opinion. But I've seen what happens when you try to force freedom on people. It doesn't work. Freedom has to be chosen. We gave them the choice. That's enough. Sora took his hand. Their minds brushed against each other, warm and familiar, like coming home after a long journey. Captain Jiwoo called, she said. She's named her new ship the Linked Horizon. She says it's for diplomatic missions, but I think she just misses the adventure. Jiwoo will never stop chasing adventure. It's who she is. And Taiho is leading the next expedition to architect ruins. He thinks there's more technology out there, more secrets waiting to be found. Probably. The architects were clever. They left a lot behind. They were quiet for a moment, watching the stars. What about the threat? Sora asked. The thing that destroyed the architects. The thing from outside the galaxy. The remnant said it might come back. It might. And if it does, we'll face it. But not alone. Not anymore. A chime sounded, and a holographic display appeared beside them. It was a view from a distant world, a Vethkai colony that had once been famous for its cold, silent efficiency. Now the streets were filled with people, aliens and humans walking side by side. And in the center of the main square, a young Vethkai child was laughing. Laughing. For the first time in that species' recorded history. Still think it was worth it? Dohyun asked. Sora watched the child laugh, felt the joy radiating through the network, and smiled. Every link has to start somewhere, she said. We just happened to be first. Above them, the stars burned bright, and across the galaxy, minds reached out to each other in ways that had never been possible before. Some chose to connect. Some chose to stand alone. But for the first time, the choice was theirs. And in the vast darkness between worlds, a single word echoed, growing stronger with each passing day. Linked. Not a question anymore. An answer.